Hello, friends. This is Pastor Christopher Murundi, the director of the Lutheran Institute of Regenerative Agriculture. It's been a while since I've greeted you guys in any way, shape, or form. The work of actually doing this project has kind of overwhelmed the promoting of it or the talking about it. I guess it's better to plant cabbages than to simply talk about planting cabbages. So that's what we've been doing. But now we're through the harvest of the chickens, and we've been doing a tremendous amount of work on the farmhouse, getting that whipped into shape. There's work going on the barn. Probably even next week we'll have a crew here in the next week or two to do a bunch of work on the barn. And I want to do a video when those guys are here to kind of show you all what's happening in the barn. Things are moving ahead. Things are moving ahead. We had a crew from Concordia University, Nebraska's Ag Club here last Saturday, and that was a great joy to have them with us. So things are happening out here. I haven't been terribly active on social media or on our blog telling you about it, but I intend here as we get into the winter to get back into that. And one thing I'm very happy to do is to get this webinar series going again. It's been quite a while since our last one, probably the beginning of the summer. So it's wonderful to be back on it and back interviewing people and talking to them about agriculture and Christianity, agriculture and Lutheranism, and how we think through these things, both from a philosophical, theological side, and then also how different people actually do the work. And I'm very happy today to have two people. It's the first webinar we've done with two people, though I think I'll have another one coming up. We have Doug and Jacob Garrison here with us from DS Family Farm, Malcolm, Nebraska. You can go to dsfamilyfarm.com. I'll try and put that link in the show notes on our YouTube channel. Doug is and his family are members at Redeemer Lutheran Church in Lincoln, Nebraska. Jacob is actually a graduate of Concordia, Nebraska, and one of my students when I was teaching at the seminary. I think you just took one class with me. I think that's right. And so Jacob, and so just because Jacob's such a fanboy, he decided then to become. No, I'm just kidding. He decided he is now the vicar at my previous congregation at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Lincoln, Nebraska. So he was able to just drive up the road back up to the family farm to record for us today. So we're very glad to have them both with us to talk to us about the intersection of Christianity and agriculture, to talk a little bit about what they do on their farm. And I'm really curious too, Jacob, as a seminary student, as a vicar looking to become a pastor, how all these things intersect too. So thank you guys for taking time today to be with us.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Pastor, for inviting us onto your webinar here.
Well, let's start out by just kind of giving us a little bit of a taste of what you do there at DS Family Farm, and then we'll talk more about agricultural philosophy and as we raising animals, stewarding God's creation as a Christian. So just introduce what you do there at DS Family Farm.
Okay, well, yeah, great. This is a perennial grass-based farm. We're looking for the different animal species impact here in our area, which, historically has been a prairie ecosystem. We are at the eastern side of Nebraska, so we do have some forested stream areas, and trees do encroach on our prairie, and that's part of the work we do here. But yeah, so we're really interested in the animals here. We buy our vegetables from other people that like to do the cropping and gardening. But yeah, we focus here on animals.
What kind of animals do you raise there, Doug?
Yeah, when we first got into this a number of years ago, we started just with chickens. Just as you said, you're just recently harvested here. That's a great gateway to get into the animal agriculture business. And again, being pasture based, we followed Joel Salatin's production model, and Jacob was one of our first chicken tractor drivers here. So yeah, we started with chickens. You give them away when you're first starting. family, friends. You kind of build a name and reputation for a great product, and then you expand from there. So yeah, we started with chickens. You know, the wife and I, Sheila, we always had an interest in beef. And the property we live on here is owned by the in-laws. We do own, they sold us like 20 acres here to build on. And we had always thought we wanted to try to do beef, but we weren't excited about letting the cows out all summer long in a pasture and then during the winter putting them in a dirt lot. And about 2000, early 2000s, you know, we kind of found out about this process of mimicking nature or following God's created order. And if you look back in the prairie ecosystems, you know, grassland ecosystems around the world, there's large ungulates or ruminants are a key part or keystone species of that ecosystem, and they're always on the move. You know, so doing some research, again, Joel Salatin was a great resource there. Fresh grass and move. So when we kind of figured that out, that was a real key interest for us to finally bring the cattle on the property here. And we brought them in 2011. And from day one until now, they've been on the move. No set stocking here. Some people call it holistic management plan grazing. We always keep them moving to fresh grass and with these long rest recovery periods. More recently, we brought in pigs a year ago. We really enjoy them. They seem to work really good if in the forest / edge area. But you know, we're trying to figure out how we can maybe get those out in the pasture for animal impact. And then my other son, Nathan, recently bought a small flock of hair sheep, and we just got them on the property here, and they're teaching us a lot. So yeah, we're trying to get into this multi-species grazing. Each animal has a unique impact to apply to the prairie ecosystem, and that's what we're trying to, again here, mimic nature or follow God's created pattern, you know, how these different species interact together, diversity.
There's a lot of things there I want to jump off on as we move forward. But first, I want to ask Jacob, you know, what was your experience? I mean, this is you know, Malcolm, Nebraska is a, you know, rural area, you know, and I'm sure a lot of the people you grew up with, you know, were farm kids, but this is a different kind of farming in many ways. What was your experience growing up doing some of this? And I guess I don't know how old you were when you got into this whole thing, but just give a few of your reflections of growing up with this kind of agriculture.
Yeah. Well, my earliest memories are of even before we did the chicken tractors, we were doing show chickens. So that was kind of my first introduction to farm animals, was learning how to like hold a chicken and show it at a fair. But then moving from there to the chicken tractors, I don't know. It was. I mean, it always made sense to me. I guess I didn't really have a lot. I had friends who I guess had animals the more conventional style, like in feedlots and stuff like that, and I would visit with them or go over to their place. But it always made more sense. It seemed the way we were doing it. It always stunk over at their farms, whereas at our farm, you know, it's like, well, I move them every day, and the chicken's coop smells bad, but when they're out on the pasture, you know, it's fine. So I always really enjoyed moving the chickens. I still do it sometimes if I'm around. And I really valued it growing up, or because then sometimes we butcher chickens as well, and just kind of being younger. I don't know how young I was. I guess maybe 12 or so when we were doing that. Just butchering chickens, that teaches you a lot about life and death, and how everything kind of is, I don't know, relies upon one another. If you don't feed the chickens or move them, then there's problems, and it just teaches you a lot when you're little. So
you you talked quite a bit, Doug, about mimicking God's order, how God's creation work, and that's certainly a hallmark of say the Joel Salatin approach and many others who do things similar in similar ways. Let's get into that a little bit. So you as a Christian, and I'll ask about a Lutheran here in a little bit. Let's just start with Christian. How does your identity as a Christian, as a baptized child of God, how does that affect how then you look at what you're doing agriculturally?
Well, that's a interesting question, and I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. But fear and respect God and what He's provided us, and how can I fit into that model and treat the animals appropriately. When I went through ag college, it was called animal science. But if you look back, 50, 75, 100 years ago, it was called animal husbandry. And I guess looking at the Bible and what I understand about fitting into God's creation, I'm here to steward those animals, to husband them. And so, yeah, that's the approach that just really fit with me again. When we started thinking about adding the cattle, how could we do it to honor those animals? Those animals are here for a purpose, and we want to provide them the best life they have while they're here. And then on their one really bad day, we honor that, and and we reap God's reward by harvesting them.
Jacob, as your my question for you is kind of maybe on the other end of this to a certain extent. So, being a Christian, being a Lutheran, now getting ready to become a pastor, serving as a vicar now, how does your experience as a farmer, and how does that then come into the work that you're preparing to do, and as a vicar already getting your feet wet doing? How does this all kind of come together? Everyone who comes into the pastoral ministry has their own set of experiences that they bring to it. What does a farmer or a farm kid bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I think just first and obviously, the world of the Bible is very agriculturally based. So some of the things just, I think, click easier for me when I'm reading through the scriptures, or like I can see it happening, especially now that we have the sheep, and I can see how they don't want to stay in the pen for I don't know what reason at all, right? They just want to go wherever. I don't know why. That makes sense now, how much of a pain we are to God at times, but how He still comes after us. That, as well as especially nowadays, I think this is important. Just the orders of creation are it for me. I don't know. It's easier for me to see how God created everything with the order, how He started with man and put him in charge of everything, and how if we're not the ones taking care of it, it's going to just get worse and worse and worse. And we can't exploit it, but we also need to take care of it. So those things kind of fit together. I'm thankful for that I was able to grow up seeing how that all worked together. So I think from that perspective, or like you just think about Paul when he's like talking to the Athenians or the Lycaonians, he's always saying, look at nature, see how God takes care of everything. It's just it's hard to not see God working in the world actively when you are watching a chick like learn how to drink water the first day that you get them. So that's just been very valuable for me, and it's a humbling thing. Whenever I come back to the farm, it's always like, oh, it kind of puts everything in perspective, So
Yeah, I think every pastor should have a few farm animals to take care of, to keep them humble, to teach them a few things, that sort of thing. And I think too, you know, a lot of our parishes are rural. Now you're at a, you know, obviously I know the parish you're serving quite intimately. You've got not necessarily a ton of active farmers because Good Shepherd's, you know, a city congregation, but you have retired folks and folks. I mean, in Nebraska, you're around agriculture. How maybe again, since it is still an urban congregation, it may be not quite as much on your vicarage, but there very well could be moments like that. But then looking into your future, how does you growing up in agriculture, how does that help you then connect with those in that you'll encounter in your as you serve the Lord's church?
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if I end up in some rural place, there's a lot of like I notice this especially when I do like shut-in visits of people. There's a couple shut-ins we go to, well, even if they're in town, that grew up on the farm, and it's just I mean, I kind of indulge in it because they're telling me about how they used to do all sorts of how they used to have the cows and the chickens and the goats and the sheep and the pigs, and how they had, you know, they were always doing all of them and they traded their eggs with whoever for what. That's all really interesting to me, and I enjoy talking about that. And just to see how much things have changed over time. But I don't know. I think it it's easier to talk to people about things everyone knows about. You can complain with anyone about how much of a pain it is when you're trying to load cattle onto a trailer or something. You know, it's just easy to talk about, and then I mean, this just happens sometimes. Then it's easy to talk about how Jesus talks about those same things. So it's pretty natural segue to talk about the gospel and how God cares for us. So it's good.
I don't think I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but I don't think you have to. The pastor doesn't have to be a farm kid to serve a rural parish. Nor does he have to be, you know, I'd grown up in a blue collar family to serve in, you know, more of a blue collar church in more of a manufacturing place. But authenticity is the big thing. So if you didn't grow up in those contexts, then being willing to listen and learn, not pretending that, oh, I know all about you. But when you do actually have that connection, that's pretty cool. And uh, that can be a wonderful entry to speak to people and connect with them as the shepherd connects with his sheep. All right, I want to shift gears just slightly here, but in the last little bit that we have, we got about, you know, between 5 and 10 minutes here for in this first section, and I want to talk about um, local food. Doug, how many families would you say that your farm is working with? Now, obviously, probably not every single one of those would be they get all their meat from you or something like that. But how many families would you estimate are supported through your farm or receive at least a portion of their meat in their freezer from you?
Yeah, we're a pretty small operation here, but easily over 100 families, with the chickens and the beef. Yeah, and you really hit my hot topic there. You know, local foods. That's kind of one of the main drivers that helped me get started on this was kind of health issues that I experienced. And doing my research, you know, the benefits of pasture-based raised animals is pretty good science behind it. We're actually involved right now with a bionutrient beef study who they're trying to, you know, even put more data behind the value of these pasture raised meats. But, you know, you think back to God's created order and it just makes sense. You know, so it's fine with me to have a little bit of science data to back this up, but in the long run, it's just common sense. This is how God made it work. You know, those animals should be out there moving around. You know, what makes a pig happy? You know, that's the question we ask every day. And how can we facilitate that while they're out there rooting around? You know, happy pigs make happy people. So yeah, that's it. But yeah, we're serving at least 100 families easily, getting part of their food from our farm.
And I want to talk more about local food. And I think we'll save some of that for the other side of the break, second half of this. But you sparked something in my mind that I want to ask now as we kind of conclude here. What are the different reasons then that folks say, okay, I'm going to buy my food from DS Family Farm rather than go to the grocery store? What kinds of things lead them to seek you out and find your website, or yes, I assume maybe you've got a sign out on the drive or whatever, and come to you?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a niche market for sure. Again, health is a main driver for a lot of these people. You would be surprised the different stories I hear from people out on my driveway, why they came out to Malcolm, Nebraska to pick up some grass-fed beef. So yeah, health is definitely one of the drivers. The other driver is animal welfare. You know, they've driven by the feedlot, like Jacob said, and they smelled it, and they don't want any part of that. And so, yeah, we give them the alternative here to pick up an animal that was raised in a different scenario. And then I guess the third thing, kind of relay that, is to the environment overall, or the ecosystem. They just know this is a better way for farming. You know, we got the soil protected, healthy grasses, healthy prairie system, wildlife. You know, it's the full ball of wax out here. So those are the three main drivers: health, animal welfare, and the environment.
I'll ask Jacob a theological question then. What a why why do we steward the land? Why, I mean, what as Christians, as believers in God, as those who read the scriptures, I mean, what's the point? I mean, if we're the top dogs, don't we just get to reap the rewards of being the top of the food chain?
Yeah, so I think again to go back to natural order, God tells Adam in the garden, right? He's tending to the Garden of Eden, and as soon as he tries to go against what God intended, that is original sin then. So now, of course, we're in the fallen world now, so things are always degrading and getting worse, and it's harder always to tell exactly what is best all the time, but taking like a position of humility in tending to the things God has given us is pretty much Christianity 101. If you're gonna be a Christian, you're gonna act with humility what God has given you, and render it up to Him and treat it as well as you can, because it's not yours ultimately; it is His. You know, your soul might be required of you tonight, and you're not taking any of this. Take care of it while you can, the best you can, for His sake.
Wonderful. And that's a good place for us to bring this first section of our conversation to a close. We're going to take a little break here, and I invite you to come and join us on the other side of this break, the second part of this video. We'll begin a little bit more into nuts and bolts. I want to talk extensively about local food, and can local food be a solution? How does local food work? What are the benefits of local food? I want to kind of dig into that a little bit. I also am curious too, and this is a question that I've often chewed on myself as we've been working through this. Is we attempt to mimic creation. What about the fall? What about those thorns and thistles? So we'll talk about things like that on the other side of the break. We invite you to join us on the second half of this webinar. I'm talking with Doug and Jacob Garrison of DS Family Farm, Malcolm, Nebraska, dsfamilyfarm.com. We're very glad to have them with us today, and look forward to joining them on the second half of our webinar today. Thank you so much, friends. Definitely tune in for part 2. God's blessings. Bye.